What's new, crew? Welcome to Homestead. If you're new, my name's Cassandra. I want to take a couple minutes to talk about Pantry Challenge. If you're new, I participate in Pantry Challenge every single year, usually only in the month of January. I'm going to be switching that up a little bit this year, but because we are on a homestead, I love to do 1 or 2 low spend months a year. And usually my grocery budget, I don't like to say my grocery budget right now because I just had my 5th baby in June of 2025. And since June, I've been trying to figure out my new grocery budget because as your family grows, things need to shift a little bit. And I hadn't increased my grocery budget really since like 2020 or 2021. And we've added 3 babies to our household since then. So it really needed a new number, and I've been trying to figure that out over the last 6 months, and what I want to include in my grocery budget and what I want to include in a separate budget. So it's been a little fickly, but I think for the last 6 months we've spent somewhere between like $550 and probably $800 a month in all household and grocery items for my family. That's diapers, wipes, household products, toiletries, and all of our food. I tend to bunch it all together because I usually buy it all at the same time, so it's easier for me to just clump it all. That being said, when I do a low spend month like Pantry Challenge, I usually take that extra money and we stick it away for when we buy a whole pig or a whole cow. That way we're saving the money and it's still part of our grocery budget, but we can stick it away for the cow or the pig for our bulk meat, and it usually evens itself out then, which is really great. However, this year is going to be a little different. My husband has 3 hunting trips planned for 2026, and we just bought 2 cows last fall and a pig. I don't think we're gonna need more beef this fall. That could change. That really could change between now and next year. The only thing I see us purchasing meat-wise is maybe a pig. That being said, because I had a baby last year, we finally just started to get that hospital bill for her stay and my stay, and I have the total here. That total medical bill after insurance is $2,776.95 for having a baby. Not bad. It could be a lot worse, that's for sure. I'm aware. That being said, I would really like to do Pantry Challenge for January, February, and I would be ecstatic if we could stick it out and do March as well. And because my husband has those hunting trips planned, hopefully he'll be successful in that. He has an elk trip and a couple other trips coming up. I can't remember exactly what he's going for. That being said, we're gonna have that meat, assuming he's successful. We're not gonna need a cow. I would like to take the money that we save from Pantry Challenge and try to put it all towards that medical bill. I'm definitely not gonna be able to pay it all off. Definitely not. In those 3 months, but I can make a huge chunk out of it, which will be fantastic. I can lower it a whole heck of a lot. That being said, I wrote down some things here that I'm hoping to accomplish during Pantry Challenge, some rules for myself, and we're gonna go ahead and talk about those today. That being said, we are a family of 7. Over the last 60, 90-ish days, my husband and I have been eating carnivore. It's become very apparent that my husband really needs this diet. His body is functioning optimally on this. I feel really good on it. I think that I could definitely swing towards more keto and add in my vegetables and fruits and things, which I slowly kind of have been upon occasion, but still very strictly mostly meat-based. That being said, I do still want to add in some budget for some of our staple meat products that we've realized over the last 3 months are really important for us. Some of those being some salamis that we get from a local like meat packaging place, like bacon, things that we just don't have in the freezer right now from our pig, because our pig is pretty much all the way gone. The only thing we have left from our pig are like some hocks, some picnic steaks, and pork chops, I think, are the only things we have left. So our pork is pretty much gone. That being said, I am going to allow myself in my budget to go ahead and purchase those things that have become staples for us. That way my husband can keep functioning optimally and we can keep going on this diet just for things that have become really hardcore staples, like things that we're eating almost daily in our diet. for some meat, even though my freezers are full of all sorts of meat right now. The other thing that I'm going to be allowing myself is fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. Even though we're on the homestead, we live in zone 4B. We are in northeastern Wisconsin. I can't grow things here in the winter. I just cannot. We do have an orchard. It's not producing a ton yet. So obviously in the winter, it's not gonna be producing anyways. The garden isn't producing anything anyways. The only thing that we have coming in from the homestead currently are eggs. So I'm still gonna allow myself some fresh fruit and vegetables. Another thing is dairy. I am gonna be allowing myself a dairy budget because once again, we don't have any dairy coming in the homestead, and we most likely never will, because I don't want to be tied to the homestead day in and day out milking cows. It is not my idea of a fun time. So props to you if you do that. But I've said this before, I never want to bring anything into the homestead that is a living animal that needs to be taken care of if I am not 100% sure that I am going to be able to care for it properly, and I am not in the season of life to properly care for a cow. One of the rules I'm setting for myself is I'm also not going to buy it if I still have a variation of it in my freezer. A good example of this is frozen fruit. My freezers are full of frozen fruit right now. A couple of weeks ago, I brought you guys through a video on how I prevent food waste, save a ton of money. And at the end of the month, we went through my fridge and we froze all of the leftover fruit. We had a ton of fruit that month that was left. I put that all in my freezer. I want to use up all of that fruit first before I am allowing myself to purchase new frozen fruit from the store. That way, we're using up what we have. We're forcing ourselves to go through even the cuts of fruit that maybe we don't like as much, whether that be in smoothies or popsicles, things like that, before I'm allowing myself to go back into a store and buy fruit that my kids like to eat a little bit more prevalently when they're frozen, things like berries. I would really like to tackle some preservation projects. I ironically enough don't have too many preservation projects in my freezer this year. I was pretty good at keeping up with it as it came in this year, mainly because my older kids are a little bit bigger this year and they were able and willing to help as vegetables were coming in from the garden. That being said, I do have some tomatoes in my freezer. I do have bones from our cow that could be made into bone broth and gotten on the shelf. I do have some lard that could be rendered down, some tallow that could be rendered down. So I do have some projects for sure. I would love to get through this month and taking care of some of those, get things out of the freezer and whatnot. The other thing I really want to either keep in the budget or make a priority, I guess, however you want to say this, is my husband is still working full-time. Right now, my husband is averaging like at least 50 or 60 hours a week, if not sometimes a little more than that. But plus on top of that, my husband heading into January is going to be teaching 2 nights a week. My husband teaches the journeyman preps courses for his local, and last year he taught 1 day a week for one class, and they liked him so much that they decided they wanted him to teach both classes. So he's gonna be teaching 2 nights a week. That being said, basically 2 nights a week from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. I'm gonna be flying solo, and my husband is gonna be out of the house, which means I need to meal prep for my husband because he's not gonna have time to come home and eat. And I need to prep things for dinner to make my life easier with all of the things that comes with kids and dinners and homework and baths and activities and all of those things that we do on a daily basis. So I want to keep it in my budget. If I need to purchase things specifically for freezer meals, I'm going to allow myself to do that to be able to get things in my freezer. That being said, I'm still going to try to be intentional with the freezer meals I'm putting in the freezer, making sure that I am utilizing what I have here first always. And that being said, if I still need like 1 or 2 things from the store to complete that freezer meal, I'm just gonna allow myself to purchase those things so I can get those meals in my freezer, because it's more important for me heading through the entire duration of Pantry Challenge. My husband's gonna be teaching these classes. So it's more important to me that I get the freezer meals in the freezer for days when I'm going to need them versus not having them, sticking to Pantry Challenge and then just being stressed and miserable about it. So I'm just gonna allow that for myself heading into Pantry Challenge. That being said, I like to participate in Pantry Challenge because my family has changed and shifted every year since I've started Pantry Challenge, whether that be adding another baby, my kids are getting older, our likes and dislikes change, and it's a really good thing heading into garden season, especially this year, because my husband and I are eating carnivore, and most of our kids have just kind of followed suit with that. We always offer fruits and vegetables, or rice or potatoes or noodles, some sort of, you know, starch, some sort of carb. And it's kind of been surprising to me, but a lot of our kids just say, no, thank you. Like, no, you know, whatever we're making, like just for example, last night I made burger patties. The kids said, I asked them if they wanted theirs on buns. I would be more than happy to make buns. Everybody said no, they just wanted the patty. However, the night before that, we had pulled pork tacos, and I made some sourdough tortillas. All the kids had sourdough tortillas, but it's just kind of an example. It just kind of depends on what meal we're eating, but a lot of the times they don't. They just kind of want the meat. Ironically enough, when we had the tacos, my oldest had her first plate with a tortilla. She came back for more. My husband was helping her, and she's like, I actually don't want a tortilla. I just want the meat. So that's what she did. She had meat, she put a little bit of cheese on it, and that's what she had. So it's ironic that things are kind of shifting a little bit, even when it comes to our children. And I have noticed that the more our kids are actually eating more carnivore inspired meals, or even just what I'm going to call maybe like more real food diets. And we always ate a lot of real food, especially for our kids. We of course have like crackers and like Cheez-Its, and I usually always have some sort of homemade baked good. Like right now I don't have any baked goods, but I have homemade puppy chow and some sort of like sweet treat for the kids to have. And we're noticing more and more that the kids just are not snacking nearly as much as they had been. I grocery shop once a month, and I went once a month grocery shopping just a couple days ago and realized we had a ton of overflow that we normally don't have, especially when it comes to our snacks, just because our kids aren't eating the snacks nearly as much. In fact, the puppy chow that I have up here, usually that puppy chow would have been gone within the first couple of days because it's the new sweet treat in the sweet treat bin, and the kids kind of go through it, and usually I restock that once, maybe twice a week. This puppy chow has been up here for like almost a week and a half or so. I think the kids ate it the first night I made it, and the rest of it has sat up there since, and nobody's touched it. So it's just interesting to see that. But anywho, I just want to make sure that I'm utilizing what's on the pantry. I'm really getting a better number count heading into this year, because I don't want to make a huge garden and preserve all of these things if we're just not going through them in the quantity and the amount that we had been in years past. That being said, I just want to make sure that we're using up what's in our freezers, because we work so hard all spring, summer, and fall long to either locally source things, grow things ourselves, preserve them, get them in the freezer, get them in jars. And I just want to make sure that we are getting the fruits of our labor's worth of food. So this is a good opportunity to just slow down, really be intentional in what we're doing, and using up what we have, making sure that all of our pork is rotated through before we get our next batch of pork. Utilizing those weird cuts of meat that maybe we're not super always excited to go ahead and cook up. Using some of our organ meat that we have in the freezer that we don't always think to pull out and throw into things. So there is that. I am really hoping to just take whatever money we save over the next 3 months or so to really knock down that medical bill. And then whatever's left after that, I will slowly pay over the next month or two. But I have two big financial goals for 2026. One is to get rid of that medical bill, and number two is to finish paying off my mom car. I only have like $5,000 left on my mom car, and I would absolutely love to get that paid off and ride her till she dies. So those are my big plans for 2026 personally, but also kind of Pantry Challenge has to do with that as well, because if I can keep my grocery budget low, I can take all of that extra and use it to make those two financial goals kind of a reality heading into 2026. So let me know if you plan on participating in Pantry Challenge as well for 2026. I will link down below my Pantry Challenge playlist if you want to see them from years past. and make sure you subscribe if you want to see all of the meals and things heading into Pantry Challenge, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye.